Hey YouTube, Nickel and Diamond It here again. I'm going to do another little project where I'm going to add a boost gauge, and one of the first steps to that is to take this vent out and replace it. So to pull this out, you literally just grab and pull the vent out, and it is going to be firmly seated, but I'm going to need the second hand to do it. So the pins that or the tabs are on either side here, kind of around the outside that you're trying to pull against. You just have to pull assertively, then pry off the chromed or whatever color trim your trim happens to be on your truck. You pull these tabs up to separate the trim ring so that you can actually pull out the vent portion, and then we're going to replace that portion with the insert for the gauge, and then we're going to cut out some of the honeycomb to get it out of the way to clear the gauge. Here the gauge has already been mounted in the 3D printed insert. You can see the print lines. I obtained this from an eBay vendor, a guy who's a machinist, and he printed this part just specifically for this application. The idea being, this slips into a hole in the gauge pod, and then you snap the cover, the vent trim ring, back on, and that holds this whole thing in place. And makes your life fairly simple for reinstalling. Here I have the vent pod in place, and I've trimmed out the back so that there's space for all of the components. And I'm going to add in the light, and then I'll run the wiring and the nylon tube through a little hole in between the vent and the actual duct itself where this foam goes. I'll be able to snake it out right through there, and that will be able to go in this black conduit all together so that it's all nice and neatly tucked away. I'll use the conduit in the engine bay to make it look like a nice clean install. Here I've rigged the other blue LED, one of the ones I bought from a package of LEDs, and I'm going to use that as my color rather than a white bulb or a slightly yellow tinted bulb, because I like the intensity of the blue LED much better than a lot of the other light colored options, especially the bulbs with the socks on them. So I'm going to run the wires and the nylon tubing together in this conduit and snake it right out of that gap. So right inside the location where the vent was, there's a gap, and that's where it seems to make the most sense to try and run the wires and the nylon line. So to access that a little bit better, you want to grab here and pull this panel out, and that will give you access to the area behind the vent up here, and make routing everything and doing all the wiring and grounding a whole lot easier. Here I gave the air duct just a little bit of a slit so that the nylon tubing could pass through easily without getting kinked, and the wires are run so that everything is accessible all on this side, and I'll be able to easily find my ground locations. And I popped the switch out, the dimmer switch, which is just held in by a couple snaps or a couple clips there, that you can just push from behind and it pops out really easily. So I'm going to figure out which specific wire is the illumination wire, and that way when I run it off the dimmer switch, the light should dim automatically with the gauge set. So after some testing to confirm, the white wire with purple is the illumination wire signal for at least the 2011 F150s, and that's pulled right at the back of the light switch itself, because all of the dimmer switch signals were on and about 5-volt signal all the time, which would mean I wouldn't get the dimming effect of the illumination signal. So I want to be able to actually see the gauge at night, and that's what this allows me to do. So I'm going to go ahead and solder this up. I didn't actually cut the wire itself. I just stripped away some of the insulation. I'm going to hit it with some quick solder and then cover the whole thing in electrical tape and put it back up in a wire loom so that it's all nice and tucked away. Once the wiring is complete, don't forget to reattach your "don't splice into this circuit" warning, because otherwise people might try and splice into this circuit. Well, that could be a bad thing. So with the pieces all routed, now it's going to be time to route the vacuum line up into the engine bay. Today, since I don't feel like using a hole in the firewall, I'm just routing this up through the fender and up underneath the hood area, tucked against the hood sensor, and then beside the coolant reservoir, to where I'll attach right in to a vacuum signal right behind the throttle body. So right here is the place where I'm teeing in. It comes off of the intake and has a check valve on that side, which prevents the boost from leaking back into the intake manifold, but it also is conveniently sized for being able to pull the boost signal from the other side of that check valve, meaning you'll get both boost and vacuum signal. I use a zip tie to make sure that it's remains secured, and now I'm just going to hook up the nylon tube and it'll be good to go. And I'll probably tie off the nylon tube to this point right here. That'll give me a little bit of support for the tube, make sure it doesn't pop out and flop around everywhere and get caught in the belts.